Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Vivekinam Mahaprajnam Dhairya Uddarya Kshamanidhim Sada Abhinava Purvantam Vidyatirtha Gurum Bhaje Ajnanam Janhavi Tirtham Vidyatirtham Vivekinam Sarvesham Sukhadham Tirtham Bharati Tirtham Ashraye Vidya Vinaya Sampannam Vitaragam Vivekinam Vande Vedanta Tattvajnam Vidhushekhara Bharati. Namaskarams and welcome to all Guru Bandhus on this occasion of 103rd Jayanti Mahotsavam of Srimad Abhinava Vidyatirtha Mahaswamiji. Oftentimes this Mahotsavam, Jayanti Mahotsavam coincides with Deepavali function as well. So happy Deepavali to all our Guru Bandhus from across the world. Over the past week, Sringeri Guru Bandhava has been organizing a series of events to mark our Guru Parampara, starting with the Jayanti Mahotsavam of Srimad Chandrasekhar Bharati Mahaswamiji, the Pattabhishekam day of Sri Mahasanidanam, and Sannyas Swikaram of Sri Mahasanidanam as well. And today we are blessed to observe the Jayanti Mahotsavam of Srimad Jyeshta Mahasanidanam. We also had a series of lectures on Advaita as expounded in Panchadashi, delivered by Sri N. Venkatamanji during this period. Today we are really blessed to hear a lecture by Sri K. M. Balasubramaniam ji, who served as private secretary to His Holiness from 1978 to 1982. Sri Balasubramaniam ji hails from Tirunelveli district, did his undergraduate studies in Osmania University, and was in Delhi being a corporate liaison between corporates and central government. In 1977, when Jagadguru's visited New Delhi, he was an active member of the New Delhi committee, taking part in all the organization activities. In 1978, on Mahashivaratri day, he went to Sringeri and offered his services to Jagadgurus, and he was shortly appointed as the private secretary thereafter, serving in that capacity from 1978 to 1982. We are indeed blessed to hear from him and his direct experiences with Jagadguru today. And with that, we'll turn it over to him. Shri Balasubramaniam ji, over to you.
Thank you, Bharatji. Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Sadguru Charanarvindabhyam Namah. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Vivekinam Mahapragyam Dhairyodharya Kshamanadhim Sada Abhinava Purvantam Vidyatirtha Gurum Bhaje. Bharati Karunapatram Bharati Padabhushanam Bharati Padamarudham Bharati Tirthamashraye. Vivekinam Mahapragyam Dhairyodharya Vidya Vinaya Sampannam Vitaragam Vivekinam Vande Vedanta Tattvajnam Vidushekara Bharatim Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. Namaste to everybody. Today is very auspicious as it is the Jayanti Mahotsavam of our Jyeshta Mahasanidanam Jagadguru Sri Sri Abhinava Vidyatirtha Mahaswamigal. Today is also a very happy occasion of Deepavali, celebrated all over the world, not only by Hindus, I see even by Americans, Australians, and British and other countries also. It gives me great pleasure to be amongst the Guru Bandhus on this happy occasion and feel very honored to share some of the experiences, the most memorable ones, while serving the Sharada Peetham Sringeri and our Jagadguru Sri Sri Abhinava Vidyatirtha Jyeshta Mahasanidanam, and also Sri Bharati Tirtha Mahaswamihal Sri Sri Mahasanidanam. I would like to give only a narration of some of the incidents and experiences of the devotees where I was a witness or heard directly through those experiences, and some heard through our Holiness Jeshta Mahasendanam himself. I must thank Sharada ji and other administrators of Sringeri Guru Bandhavas and Tattva Loka for having given me this opportunity to be amongst the Guru Bandhavas on this very happy occasion. Those devotees who have had the privilege of having darshan of our Jeshta Mahasannidhanam or even a little interaction with him will surely remember to cherish those golden moments throughout their lifetime. The gentle smile and the magnetic voice can never be forgotten. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. This shloka every day I utter as a prayer. But there are devotees who have had experiences in every letter and spirit of this shloka. To cite a few examples, there is a devotee in Chennai who was specially blessed by our Jeshta Mahasannidhanam to a great level of spiritual field. He used to experience during Chandramauliswara Puja that Jeshta Mahasannidhanam and Chandramauliswara alternating the positions. That is, our Jeshta Mahasannidhanam will be in the place of Chandramauliswara Spatikalinga, and the Spatikalinga will be in place of our Jagadguru Jeshta Mahasannidhanam. This is no hallucination or exaggeration. This is only a reconfirmation of the statement of Jagadguru Sri Sri Chandrasekhara Bharati Swamihal, who had told that Sri Abhinava Vidyatirtha Mahaswamihal is no other than Lord Parameshwara himself. So it is no wonder that he could have that experience. Similarly, there is a devotee in Bangalore who was a total non-believer in our tradition, rituals, and customs. During his engineering college days, he used to ask bullying questions about our religion and different customs. He was not alone. He had his best friend, classmate, who was also having similar views. However, by some strange circumstances, both of them happened to visit Sringeri through their family visit. And this particular gentleman had a bag load of questions to confront the Sringeri Jagadguru, then Jeshta Mahasannidhanam. When they went to Narasimhavanam, as usual, when Jeshta Mahasannidhanam used to give darshan in the morning, he came out in Sachidananda Vilas. The moment this gentleman had the first darshan of Jeshta Mahasannidhanam, he felt there was no need to ask any questions. The immediate transformation was that very day he started doing Sandhya Vandanam. Later, he was visiting Sringeri quite often, and he had Mantropadesham also from our Jeshta Mahasannidhanam, and he used to receive invisible guidance whenever he faced problems, either in his family or even in his business circumstances. So, in his own words, he said that there was, till today, there was no need to ask any of those questions he had in his minds. That was his experience. There was another person in Delhi. He was living close to our Shankarmat in Delhi. He was a very senior officer in Air Force. He was holding the rank of Air Marshal. If I remember, I think he was Air Marshal Goyal. That person had some occult powers like a clairvoyance and a few more powers. When he saw our Jeshta Mahasanidanam first during 1977 trip in Delhi, he said he had that brilliance in Jeshta Mahasanam face that he couldn't see with his naked eyes. For a second, he just couldn't understand what was going on. But that was all. And he was visiting our mutt almost every day. And he used to have some short sessions as personal meetings with our holiness. A few years later, he visited Sringeri and he had a private audience with Jeshta Mahasanidanam. So there he explained that he had some extraordinary ideas during his service time, of course, during when he was in the Air Force. He thought that India could develop some of the most lethal weapons, airborne missiles and weapon systems, which could have devastating effect on the enemies. And he tried for discussion and explanation and he also had ideas of how to produce and develop them. But then his officers and others, they felt that something was wrong with him. He said, it was his own words, he said there was a serious mental imbalance. So they politely eased him out of the services. They said people thought that he had some weird imagination about this weaponry systems, etc. Nevertheless, he went on, and when he explained all this to Mahasanidanam, our Jeshta Mahasanam with a smile listened to him, and then he said, whatever was described was very correct and was possible. So this man was so amazed that the first person to accept his statements as believable, he just didn't have words to express his gratitude. Then our Jeshta Mahasanidanam gave some references from Ramayana and also Mahabharata of the warfare and the weapons of destruction, how and all that. Now at that point, he also told this gentleman that Ramayana is an ocean. Anybody who dives deep into it can come out with gems of his choice. For example, if an astrologer dives deep into Ramayana, he will find many of his queries answered or many ideas about astrology. Similarly about dharma, similarly about human conduct. And if somebody goes into the Ramayana, he will also get, and with a mindset of warfare and defense, he will definitely get answers to all his queries in the warfare and weaponry systems. So the gentleman was so very happy. Now, from the recorded history, from the time of the 32nd Pitadishwar, Vriddha Narasimha Bharati Swamihal, in our mutt, the firm belief and experience of a fact is that Sringeri Jagadgurus are the human representation or human form of Sri Sharada Devi. If you all permit, I would like to share two of the experiences, one from of my father, one about myself. My father was initiated into doing Lalita Sahasranama Archana on Deepam, that is a lamp. So Devi was invoked on a lamp and he was doing Lalita Sahasranama Archana. So this was initiated by a very renowned Dikshatar in Delhi. And my father was doing this for a very long time with great devotion and dedication. And once he had an experience that a very young girl with a beautiful smile, he invited my father that come to my house and light a lamp. Now, as if he questioned her, where is your house? Before that, that little girl answered, showed a tiled roof house. In front of it, there was a river flowing. Now, that was all. He didn't know what it was, but he remembered that incident and kept to himself. A few years later, that was in 1965-66, when Sringeri Jagadguru, our Cheshta Mahasanidanam, Sri Abhinava Vidyatirtha Mahaswami, had visited Delhi during the first North Indian tour. That was a long stay in Delhi. Holiness went to Haridwar, Rishikesh, Kedarnath, Badrinath, and then also to Nepal. So my father was also a devotee, so he was going and attending the camp every day, witnessing the Chandramauliswara Puja. And that happened for close to about 2 to 3 months. One day, during the Chandramauliswara Puja, the electricity went off and there was no light and pitch dark. So those days, generators were very new, and it wasn't, immediately organized, facility. So my father immediately organized for about a few of the emergency lamps. Those days, the emergency lamp will be encased in a small box-like thing with automotive battery in it and the car headlight kind of a thing, very bright but very heavy. And His Holiness liked it and he was appreciating it. So at the end of it, two such emergency lamps were given to Holiness. And this happened, that was all. And 3 years later, in 1968, if I remember correctly, for the Chaturmasyam, my father visited Sringeri for the first time in his life, the first visit to Sringeri. So that very day, during the Chandramauliswara Puja, that was in Sachidananda Vilas, those days electricity used to be very, very scarce in Sringeri, and very often there used to be power cut. So during Chandramauliswara Puja, the light went off, and this lamp was placed in Sachidananda Vilas, and that lit, and it was very bright. After the puja was over, His Holiness came out and he called my father and said, Meenakshi Sundaram, the light you gave, in a flash. Then my father recollected the young girl who said that come to my house, light a lamp, and Holiness doing this. Then he remembered that it was Sharada Devi who invited him, and Jagadguru himself is no other than Sharada Devi herself. So that was a very, very thrilling experience for him. And in my case, when I went to Sringeri with an intention of staying there, doing whatever service I could to the Peetham and Holiness, the first day I had darshan of His Holiness, and then that was a Shivratri day, so I couldn't have much opportunity to meet him or talk to him. So after a couple of days, I wanted to have a meeting. In the sense, I wanted to ask His Holiness permission to stay on in Sringeri, and the intention was to be in Sringeri to offer my services. Well, the Holiness said, okay, I'll see him later. Then I went in the evening and he said, I'll see him tomorrow. So this exercise went on for a few days and close to about 20, 25 days. Every day I'll try, make an attempt in the morning, again in the evening, but no meeting, no talk, nothing was possible. So I was getting a little disappointed and dejected. I tripped into frustration. I didn't know what to do. I was wondering whether what I did was right by coming to Sringeri. If it was wrong, what should I do? So I was totally in confusion. And every day I used to, after the darshan in the morning and Tirtha Prasadam, I used to go to the other side for the darshan of Sri Sharada Devi. So I went to Sharada temple and prayed that, look, you are Jagan Mata. They say he is Jagadguru, but I'm not able to talk to him. I don't know what I have done is right or wrong. If I'm not fit to be there in Sringeri, then the Holiness should tell me that you go back. I would have gone back. So like that, so many thoughts were going on in my mind, and mentally, I said that okay, if I cannot talk to Holiness, I won't eat today. So with that, it went on, and in the evening, I went to as usual, to the Chandramoliswara Puja. I was there, but then the mind was not in the puja. To be frank, there was a little anger. That what is this? Holiness wouldn't even give me an opportunity to tell me whether I am right, wrong, whatever it is. So the puja was over, and every day after the night puja, His Holiness would visit the Adhishtanam of Jagadguru Sri Chandrasekhara Bharati and Jagadguru Sri Abhinava, Sachidananda Shiva Abhinava Narasimha Bharati Swami. So those who were attending the puja, they will also follow him till the Adhishtanam before Holiness retired for that day. So that day, as the Jagadguru stepped out of Sachidananda Vilas, he just turned around and called me by my father's name. Hey, Meenakshi Sundaram, you wanted to talk to me? You can imagine my position. I was so emotionally choked. I didn't know what to say. Then he said, okay, wait here. I'll come back and talk to you. Then after the Adhishtanam Darshanam was over, His Holiness called me in. And I prostrated and the whole body was trembling. I didn't know what to say. He understood my position. He said, sit down. He calmed me down. Then Holiness himself started asking questions. Then anyway, it went on. Then I told him that my intention was to stay here with your permission. So I seek your permission. He said, you are already here. So be here, be happy. Then immediately the first shocker was, did you eat? I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to tell a lie and I didn't want to tell the truth. So even before I could answer him, he gave me few fruits. He said, go eat it. See, that time it was all in excitement, happiness, went back. But later I realized, see, my mental prayer or whatever it is in front of Sri Sharada Devi was that without having a talk with Holiness, I would not eat. The very same day, after about 20-25 days, His Holiness immediately answered and then he gave me a chance to talk to him. So that was a most unforgettable experience that Sharada Devi and our Holinesses are no different. They are only in the human form. So similarly, there are many devotees, I'm sure, over the years, they would have had similar experiences, which they will definitely cherish. Now, many people have wondered and asked, in fact, asked me also. See, our Holiness Jeshta Mahasanidanam was addressed as a Jivan Mukta. Of course, I am not competent to portray or explain anything about his spiritual status as a Jivan Mukta. But people used to ask what would he be his daily routine like, whether he would interact with people or will be in meditation all the time, how his general life would be. So this was very pertinent and is very interesting that His Holiness took part in every mundane affair or mutt administration or temple affairs with so much involvement into it, meeting people, talking to them about their lifestyle or their life issues. But the only difference is when we as human beings, when we accost people or when we hear news or hear any incident, it affects us so much that sometimes, whether it is good or bad, it affects us so much that we are not able to concentrate in our other routine works because the issue occupies our mind so much that we are not able to get it off so quickly. That is a stark difference between ourselves and His Holiness. Imagine in a day, Holiness meets so many people from so many walks of life, right from small children to general devotees, pundits, businessmen, politicians, other Mathadhipatis. Everybody has his or her own problems or issues to discuss and talk about. And His Holiness used to very intently listen to them and offer them guidance, offer them blessings. But after one person goes away, it is the other person. And the whole day, after even meeting so many people and so many issues, he is nonchalant, he is on his own, he is not affected by any of these things. That itself is a proof that how great our Holiness was and how a Jivan Mukta or whatever we may call, that he is totally unattached to whatever he was involved in issues throughout the day. This is something remarkable. That is, for our stages, this is the proof that he is no ordinary human being. Now, coming to our Acharyal's certain activities, people used to ask how is he involved in some of the worldly affairs. Right from small issues of self-discipline to any other issue, he was like anybody else. But as I said, the difference could be seen personally. For example, his self-discipline coming to his own body language, everything was so graceful. His smile used to be so gentle and attractive. In fact, he never instructed, to everybody on any matter of personal issues like self-discipline or anything or conduct. He led by his own, doing things the way it should be done. For example, in the body language, the grace was so attractive that whenever people who have seen him, he used to always sit in a posture which was very, very attractive. He never used, his limbs in any other. In fact, it was his instruction that the limbs should not be what do we call otherwise angacheshtai. That is in an unpleasant manner, moving your hands here, there, and all that. That was a very simple thing, but he used to adapt himself. In dressing, his although kashaya vasram very simple, but the dressing was very immaculate, and he was very particular that in the anybody wearing dresses and all that, it should be in a very graceful manner. To me personally, he said, I was as a brahmachari, I was only using the dhoti in a particular fashion as brahmachari used to wear. So he said, look, you are occupying a position in the mutt. So to keep up with the mutt's prestige and status as a adhikari, that is what he used to say, that you should wear panchagacham. So that is where I started wearing panchagacham at the instruction of Jyeshta Mahasanidhanam. In fact, where a very interesting incident happened, I was to go to Delhi and meet some high, in fact, the Prime Minister of the nation. At that time, I was supposed to give prasadam to the Prime Minister. So before I left, he called me and asked, hey, you are going to Delhi. What dress will you wear? I said, I'll wear the same panchagacham and the dress which I'm wearing. Then he said, no, you are representing the Peetham and you are also seeing the very high dignitary of the nation. So you should dress to the occasion. So he said, don't you have sherwani? I said, I don't have. Then he said, no. Then ultimately, he said that you should wear only jibba. And, he prescribed what kind of a dress I should wear. So these were all simple, but he was very particular that how a man should represent himself in a position and also should conduct himself similarly. So such a small instruction, but very important in life, I was blessed to receive directly from Jyeshta Mahasanidhanam. Now, similarly, he was very particular that when it comes to our religious routines, Sandhya Vandanam should be performed only after the morning snanam. Without snanam, Sandhya Vandanam should not be performed, except in very, very rare cases where somebody is ill or some whatever circumstances. Otherwise, it is very important that Sandhya Vandanam has to be performed only after the morning snanam. In my first Vinayaka Chaturthi in Sringeri, that is when I was officially, taken as the private secretary. So the routine used to be the morning darshan, where I used to brief what are the day's events or whatever. So that day the puja arrangements were all made. So I went to explain to His Holiness the arrangements and all that. First he asked, did you do your Ganesha puja? I said, no, anyway, the puja is going to be there in, the mud, Holiness is going to perform. I will participate in that. He said, no. Look at the young children in our village, Sringeri. Even if there are 2-3 boys in a family, everybody will individually do the Vinayaka puja. So it is very important. Ganesh Chaturthi, Ganesh puja must be performed. So go, do the puja and come back. So I immediately rushed back. So I did my puja and came back. So he was very particular that everybody should perform the Vinayaka Chaturthi or Vinayaka puja individually, come what may. That was his instruction. And another interesting lesson I learned. See, when I was appointed from the mutt, they had prescribed a remuneration to me, which I refused to accept, saying that I have come here for service. So why should I accept? So this matter went to His Holiness. So I was called. Then he told me, I believe you have refused to accept the remuneration. Why? Is it very small? So I said, no, that is not the point, but I have come here to serve the mutt, where I should give something to the mutt. How can I accept money? Very smilingly he said, oh, is that so? If you are ill tomorrow, you have money to pay to the doctor? He asked me. And even more interesting, he said, how will you pay the barber if you have to shave? I didn't know what to answer. So he said, very smilingly, he said, look, it is very important that you should have some money with you. You should not be dependent on others for small contingencies. In fact, in the modern days, I would not blame, or I would advise even the people who take sannyas should have some small bank account for meeting the contingencies. That was his, the practical instruction in life. You cannot get it in any management institutes, anywhere else. So many such small and important lessons in life. That was one of the greatest lesson I received from His Holiness directly. So that was very, very important to observe that how the other person would or should lead the life. And he never hesitated in pointing it out, in some cases personally, in some cases generally. There were two other incidents where his instruction was very, very valuable. Once something went wrong in Sringeri, where there used to be a local newspaper where they wrote something very, what do you call, unpardonable about the Mutt and our Acharya himself. That was very objectionable. And when it was told to me, I was very shocked and I just couldn't tolerate. So I rushed to Holiness and then told him that this is what I understand has been written. So we have to, reject it, or we have to object in a way. We should do it. He simply smiled and said, "Don't bother, keep quiet." Then I just didn't know why he said that, or what am I supposed to do. And very next few days, another incident happened where there is a place called Sirigeri near Sringeri. There is another religious mutt. See, in those mutts, whatever the Swamiji says, this devotees will follow. So that Swamiji, that was the election time, and if I am permitted, that was the election where Indira Gandhi stood from Chikmagalur. So those Swamijis had said that you should all vote for Congress. The paper reported that Sringeri Swamiji says all the devotees should vote for Congress. And when that news was read out, you can imagine my blood boiling like that. And I rushed to Jeshta Mahaswamiji and told him this is what it is. So we have to do something about it. He said, "What should you do?" I said, "No, we have to protest. We have not said that." So, when we have not said that, why do you worry? Keep quiet. Then he said, "Look, he's running a newspaper. He wants a sensationalism. So he should run his business." So that is how he will put it. When you have not said anything, why should you want to protest? Another issue is, if you protest, he gets more masala. He will write even more things about it. Then he will go on and on. And imagine the practicality of life is, today it is a news. Have you ever read the morning newspaper in the evening? No. Once you read and finish the newspaper, that is the end of it. The story goes to the next day. Whatever is the news, he'll be searching for something news tomorrow, and tomorrow goes off. Like that, it goes. So never try to follow up on this and never get perturbed. So at that point, he said, "Look, when you occupy a position, especially with an institution, whatever you do, there will be two persons praising you, your work. There will be 20 people criticizing you. So never lend ears to either the praise or the criticism. You must do your duty with sincerity, and if you are right, don't bother about anything." So that was another great lesson, that he had even mentioned this in his own discourses also somewhere, wherever, in fact, where the camps used to be there in local places, there used to be committees and disputes and whatever. So he has said that in all the committees, all this public work, there will be two people or three people working, or even one person working. There will be 40 people who will be only a luggage, and they will all be there to criticize, and they'll also be ready to blame anything. So you should never bother. Do good things in your life with sincerity and pray God that you will not do wrong. And if at all there is a criticism, just analyze within yourself whether it is right or wrong. So leave it at that. Don't get perturbed, and don't bother your status or anything facing this criticism. So these were all some of the very, very important lessons, which was very personal to me, and I thought I would share because this may be useful to others. And when it comes to our Jeshta Mahasanidanam, he was a nationalist. He would often say that when you are asked, who are you? Say, I am a Bharatiya. So he was very particular that I am a Bharatiya is very important. Rest of the things are secondary and not so important. And he was also a very strict stickler to the rules and regulations of the government. He would often say that government makes rules, and as citizens, he was so simple. He used to say that as citizens, we should obey the rules, never protest. Some of the examples are, learned from his exemplary conduct. See, there was a Jagir abolition those days. At that time, the mutt was partially managed or at least supervised by the government of Karnataka. So the mutt administration was also, in fact, represented by a government authority, government officer. So when the Jagir abolition came into implementation, even the Mysore Maharaja also was involved in the administration, but at that time, because of the Jagir abolition, he was also affected. And there were many other institutions which were either protesting or seeking very, very favorable action from the government. And the Sringeri Mutt, having had a very great reputation at that time and a special status, the government officials and also the minister concerned visited Sringeri, and they discussed with our Jyeshta Mahasanidhanam that the Jagir Abolition Act is to be implemented, and we would, keeping in view the status of the mutt, we would seek your Holiness's permission and your sanction for this. In the sense, what is it that Holiness would like to hold back and give the rest to the government? Our Jyeshta Mahasanidhanam smiled and said that what is it that the government wants to give it to the mutt? So he said, take whatever the government, because it's your government implementation, your rules and regulations. So it is not what I want. It is what government wants to give it, that we will keep. Rest of the things you are free enough to take. And the minister, the officials were so surprised. The first time, or the first Swamiji, who never insisted on what they want, and they gave such a free hand and liberty to the government. So because of that, they gave as much as could, the properties they could give, they handed to the mutt. And those days there was very dense sandalwood forest, I believe, in and around Sringeri. So they allotted, I don't know, very huge quantity every year to the Sringeri mutt for its puja's use. So which never happened with other mutts. So that is the reputation the Sringeri mutt enjoys. More so, our Holiness's insistence on following the government rules and regulations. In fact, when it comes to his personal what you call observance of the rules. See, during camps, the local governments or local bodies used to give two parties of policemen. One, an escort party, which will lead the Holiness's convoy whenever we are driving through the city, and there used to be another police van for respect and security. So you'll be surprised to know this, when in Bombay, people would know that what kind of a traffic we used to have. So there used to be a escort van plus another police van, which used to have the siren those days, the revolving siren. And during the traffic, usually in the morning, out visits to other institutions or any other places. So the traffic used to be very heavy, and this police van would, start honking and then siren. So Holiness called that police head. He said that, look, Bhaiya, no siren. So, then he used to say that, no, government has ordered, we have to, escort you with all the respect and honor, and you cannot be afford to be, entangled in the traffic. So Holiness used to say, look, we are like any other citizen in the, everybody has his own hurry or necessity to reach places. So we are also one among them. So we will be there among the traffic. Please don't honk. Please don't use the siren. So let the signal be on like anybody else, then only we'll pass. And he was very strict about that. And the police were in trouble because they had to answer their higher authorities. He said that, look, our MUT officials will tell you and tell your officers also. So no use of siren. So that is how he conducted. And in places we have seen, driving through the highways, sometime those days we had to cross the railway line. So when the level crossing, many places it has happened that the gate would be closed. So the policeman would rush, ask that lineman to open the gate and all that. So Holiness would say, no, we will wait for, see, it is done for the safety. So it is for the safety for everybody else, everybody on the road. So we will not violate. So don't ask him to do any favor. So these are some of the practical observance of rules and regulations. He was very, very particular. Similarly, while driving, he was against honking too often. He never liked using the horn. I am sure people overseas, they would be surprised to hear that in India, no driving is possible without honking. But Holiness was very particular that no usage of honks on the road as far as possible. It is only in absolute cases like animals crossing or something, you can honk. Even there, he used to say, slow down. That was his instruction. So it was very, very interesting to see that our Holiness was very particular about these rules and regulations. Now, during our Jeshta Mahasendanam's period, at least when I was there were two raging issues on the political front. One was cow slaughter issue. The other one was casteism. So people may be very curious to know what was the view of our Holiness, and especially those days when it was a very hot subject. As far as cow slaughter issue was concerned, Jeshta Mahasendanam was very clear that the cow is a devata for all the Hindus. So we should worship cow in every form in full devotion. But at the same time, it also happens to be food for others. So when people said that Holiness should come onto the road and lead the agitation, Holiness said, look, you do whatever you can, and you cannot insist or force anybody else to do what you want. Now, if you have respect for the cow and if you worship, do you have cow in your place? Now, by simply coming onto the road and agitating, issues cannot be solved. In our mutt, we have enough number of cows, and you just go and have a look at the cow shed, how it is being taken care of, and how we, protect them till their lifetime. Whether it gives milk or no milk, we give full protection till its lifetime. So every cow is taken care of like that. So there are people for agitation, you go and approach them. So he was very clear in certain principles, even at a national level. Although he was observing rules and regulations, he was also never hesitated to express and conduct himself of the principles which he held as very strong. So as far as cow slaughter issue is concerned, even in Delhi, right from Delhi to Singeri, people insisted that Holiness should participate in agitation, protest, and all that. He refused. So that was his view on that. As far as casteism is concerned, I would start by giving one practical instance where two union ministers those days, they visited Sringeri. They said they were very keen to know the views of our Holiness in casteism. Not only that, they started with the same request that Holiness should lead an agitation for against casteism and all citizens being equal and all that. And Holiness never hesitated in telling him, look, why don't, as government, Why don't you lead the issue? You have your government forms, right from school to your government employment or wherever, even census. You have a line called a caste. Every individual has to mention his caste. Why don't you remove that column? You lead by example. Why do you want the religious institutions to lead? You created it. You remove it first. And that gentleman had no answer. Then he said, no, no, no. You have different systems, Brahmins and other castes and all that, higher, lower. And I know the usual argument he put forth. He listened to everything. He said, if you go to the other side and see in Sharada temple, in a day there are hundreds of people visiting the temple for darshan. Do we ever ask before entering the temple which caste do you belong? Which anybody has been asked? Never. You will be surprised to know that there are Christians, there are Muslims, there are different people entering the temple having darshan. So as long as you visit the temple as a devotee, no question is asked and no problem. But the day when you say that I am so and so, I want this privilege, then only the problem arises. Then you are questioned, then you are restricted or actions taken, whatever it is. So then he asked, no, no, no. Again, you show, observe these differences in so many other places, like in marriage, here, there, and all that. And I'm not going in elaborate discussion on that. Then Holiness shot back. He said that at that point of time, he said that, look, as the government, we have given a very high position for an SC/ST person as a union cabinet minister. So Holiness asked him, please tell me that cabinet minister's driver, does he belong to the same caste? So this minister said, yes. Then he asked, will the minister allow his driver to sit along with him for food on the same dining table? Oh, how can that be? He is a driver. He said, well, you are, who is showing the difference here? In our place, there is no such a difference. A jamindar, if his cook happens to be a Brahmin, they will may eat together. There is no problem. So who is now propagating or who is practicing casteism? So a few more questions and few more answers. The minister had no answer. So he had to bow down and then go away. And when it came to casteism, in Kerala, at a particular place, Holiness gave a beautiful discourse. And the discourse had nothing to do with Shastra, just practical examples. It went on for 45 minutes or more. He started with the stones, but that is inanimates and animates. He said that stones are stones, but certain stones occupy the crown as gems. And there are only certain stones which are eligible to be carved as statues and devatas or anything, and placed in a temple. And there are stones which are good enough only for laying roads, but all are stones. Are there no difference? And similarly, when it comes to soil, he said that can you have a paddy crop on the seashore, or can you have similarly, any other crop in all the soil? No. So you have to have certain selection of soil for selection of crops. So like that, he went on and on. He came from inanimates to animates. He said in animal, and finally, I'm just trying to close it quickly. He said that even in human beings, when somebody is ill, they say blood is all red, blood is all same. But when somebody is ill and he wants critically ill and he needs particular bloods to be infused, have you noticed that a son's blood doesn't suit the father, or a brother's blood doesn't suit the brother? So you say the doctors say O positive, he went about that. There are different types of blood. So blood can have so much of difference. So how would you say everybody is equal? Then he went on to give a very classic example in the end. He said, see, people used to bet on horses in horse race, gambling. If you ask the man who bets on a particular horse, he will first inquire about the history of the horse, who the jockey is, who the trainer is, and who the owner is, and the pedigree of the horse. My God, it was such a detailed explanation about that horse betting alone. People wondered how did Holiness knew, how he came to know about all these things. So after ascertaining that it is worth betting on the particular horse, only then the gambler would bet on that particular horse. If a horse can have so much of importance on the pedigree and other things, why not men? And mind you, even in human being, there were only 4 classes defined by Lord Krishna. It is human beings who made thousands of differences in casteism. So let us all bring them back to only 4, then we'll see whether even this 4 is required or not. So it was such a beautiful discourse on casteism without touching anything about Hinduism, religion, Vedas, or whatever. It was such a a pin drop silence in the whole crowd. That was very important because in Kerala that was the height of this casteism protests. So these were all some of the practical views, and our Holiness never hesitated in expressing that in whatever platform that was required. Now, our Jeshta Mahasanadanam was also known to be an expert engineer. Of course, our Jeshta Mahasanam had interest in every field of life, every field of whether it is agriculture, whether it is construction, whether education, whatever. He showed and involved so much into it. And engineering was one of his favorite subjects. And to give a few examples, Holiness was very particular about in Sringeri or wherever it is, the mud construction and any other construction, to utilize the landscape without spoiling it or without damaging it. So one would notice that our Sringeri hospital in Sringeri, it is on a small hillock. So the original plan was to have a flat land and then build a huge hospital. Holiness said no. He said use the landscape. So different stories as the land was a different contour. So that is how the hospital in Sringeri is built. And people would have noticed the Pravachana Mandiram in Sringeri. I believe it was not like this before. It had a lot of pillars and 2 stories, ground floor and first floor. And our Jeshta Mahasanidanam was very particular that it should be like an auditorium. Without altering the structure, without altering or infusing new materials, it should be made as an auditorium that people should be on the ground floor as well as on the first floor also should be able to witness the events without any disturbance so that it can accommodate more number of people. So those days our mutt devotees were all big engineers from Gannon Dunkerley and other L&T. So they all discussed, they said, no, it is easier to demolish this and construct. It is not that practicable or whatever to construct or reconstruct the way His Holiness wants to. But after much discussion, Holiness did not accept. He said, it should be possible. Then quietly, he only gave a plan. He said that, look, use the pillars and lift the roof using the pillars on the first floor and leaving the center column free. So that is how the present structure is. It is purely, solely the idea of Jeshta Mahasanidanam that our Pravachana Mandiram has got a ground floor, but pillars from first floor, ground floor to shifted to the first floor, and the roof was lifted up. And now it appears that you have 2 balconies and ground floor. So it looks like a mini auditorium. So it was even the Gannon Dunkerley engineers, they were all surprised that he did not strike them, although they were all engineers. The another example, classic example, was our present Tunga Bridge. His Holiness was very particular that there should be a bridge across the Tunga River. And those days people almost declined to accept that view because they said it is impossible to construct a bridge because of the elevation and all that. And in particular, Jeshta Mahasanadanam was very keen to have a bridge similar to Lakshman Jula. He used to several times mention, hey, do you see, I'm preparing for the Lakshman Jula here. And for that, he had constructed the Subramania Swami Devasanam, now what we have. And there used to be Patasala classrooms around that. And lots of lights placed there. So that in the night, when you come from Narasimhavanam towards our Sharadambal temple, when all the lights were left, he used to often say, look, doesn't it look like Lakshman Jula? All that is missing is only the bridge. So this plan was so much instilled in him that he was very, very keen. And ultimately, it was Gammon India who agreed to construct the bridge, because Gammon India is known for their construction acumen. And even then, they had some problems. They faced some problems initially. And at the foundation level, it was, of course, the design also was given by our Jeshta Mahasanam. In fact, Mr. Subbarao of Gammon India, he himself told me when I happened to meet him in Delhi, we were all wondering, Holiness was insisting that our elephant should be able to walk on the bridge. So, I mean, it should hold the weight of an elephant. He didn't know. So they were wondering what it is. So they made all their engineering calculation and all that. And ultimately, it was by the Holiness's guidance that came out with the idea of constructing this bridge. And it was purely by the grace of our Jeshta Mahasanam that they overcame the foundation problem of the pillars. And today we have that beautiful bridge. It was all the grace of our Jeshta Mahasanidhanam. So this was the engineering. Some of the couple of examples only I have given. There are very many of that. And our Holiness was very, very particular about his time management. That is one of the favorite subjects. So every Friday he used to come to the other side for Sharada Devi's darshan. So words would be sent to all the people, because that time there were a lot of construction activities going on, and temple affairs or even administrative affairs, and there were some legal problems, so many things. So he would time it in such a way that in the evening, whenever Holiness visited the other side, after the darshan of the temple, he would sit in Torana Ganapati's Sannidhi. There, one by one, people will be called, the engineers, supervisors, contractors, all those people, everything, all the drawings he would read himself, give solutions to whatever problem they raised, whether it was money or technical, everything. You will be surprised. Most of the engineers would seek amendment or correction in their drawings, and Holiness used to guide them for that. It was very, very surprising. Of course, I couldn't understand, but then they used to really feel very happy that we were wondering how to tackle this, and Holiness gave a brilliant idea. That was the experience of the engineers. And when it comes to agriculture or any other subject, in fact, our Holiness used to give time and used to have personal meeting with every expert in every field. So those days we had certain devotees from WAO, that is World Agricultural Organizations. He used to have personal meetings with them, ask them several questions about the agricultural pattern or whatever it is, how it should be grown, whether it was areca nut or even crops and all that. You may be surprised to know that it was our Jeshta Mahasanam who first brought coconut plantation to Sringeri. People in and around Sringeri, they couldn't accept the fact that coconut could be grown in Sringeri, but it was Mutt, particularly our Holiness, who brought the coconut plantation. And today we see lots and lots of coconut plantation in and around Sringeri. And not only that, even his another personal mention, which he used to do quite often, was he was very fond of feeding the people under the coconut plantation. He used to say that, look, like the coconut rose, people should be seated under the coconut tree, and then they should also be served food. So this was done both in Sringeri as well as in Bangalore Mutt, where we have a lot of plantations. Our Holiness was also very simple and very accommodative. And he was very, very practical on several issues. When it comes to accommodation, being accommodative, see, in our Delhi Shankar Mutt, when the Kumbhabhishekam was done, there were very many devotees in and around our mutt in that area. They were very happy at that they have a very big temple, Shiva temple. So there, the first Shivaratri after the Kumbhabhishekam was done and Holiness, returned from Delhi. On the Shivaratri day, a few North Indian ladies, they went straight into the sanctum sanctorum and then started doing Abhishekam. And our Mutt Pandit didn't know what to do, so he was surprised and shocked, and then he thought that sacrilege, and he immediately telephoned to the committee members. So the committee members came and protested, and all that. There was a big hue and cry about that. And these North Indian devotees felt very, very sad about it. He said, "What is this? Jagadguru ji has done this Kumbhabhishekam, and we are not allowed to do Abhishekam." So the committee people visited Sringeri. They said that this is what has happened. So how do we rectify the situation now? That Holiness said, "Look, when you are in Rome, be a Roman." He said, "No issues. You have another Shivalingam just behind this Shivalingam and have a water facility, so a tap. So if you go to our Delhi Shankar Mat, you will find there is a Shivalingam in the Prakaram right behind this original Shivalingam where people can come. They will do their own Abhishekam and Puja. What is your problem? So you do your Puja and let the North Indians do Puja there." So when that was done, the people were very, very happy. And in Shivaratri day morning, you will find more North Indian crowds at the back of the temple where they do puja. And this is how he was very practical in certain, problem-solving methods. Then, at a time, there was a Christian priest who visited Narsimhavanam. Priest, I think a pastor, I don't know what do they call. In our words, we would say that he had the audacity of asking His Holiness that I want a small piece of land in Narasimhavanam. So people around were, they were all, the blood started boiling, and then how dare this fellow ask like this? His Holiness simply smiled. He said, "What will you do with the land?" He said, No, I will preach." He said, "What will you preach?" He said, "I'll preach religion, my religion." So he said, "No problem, can be given, provided please tell me what is it that you will preach which is not there in our religion, Hinduism. Will you please tell me what it is? Then we'll see." So the man, you can imagine what would be his answer. He had no answer. So he simply walked away. So then he said that, "Look, why never get angry with people. Listen to their side and then let us be practical. If possible, not possible, it comes later. So don't get worked up with such kind of attitudes." So that was his, answer to him. Once, there was in Sringeri, Sachidananda Vilas, there was a Pada Puja, one devotee, very highly devoted. He was doing Pada Puja. When the Pada Puja was almost over, the Purohitar said the slokam where, he is supposed to put the flowers on the Padukas. That is the Prarthana. This gentleman, when the slokam was uttered, suddenly got up. Our Jeshta Mahasana was reading some book, So he went said nobody knew what he was about to do. He simply went and then put the flowers on the Holiness's head. People were all shocked. Somebody wanted to pounce on him and things like that, but Holiness simply smiled and said, stopped everybody from acting. So he was so simple and accommodated that he never bothered about it because the man did out of devotion. So similarly, the North Indian people, including women, whenever they meet a holy person or anybody of respect, they used to touch the feet. So some North Indians had come to Sringeri, so they touched our Holiness' feet. Suddenly, when they're doing namaskar, again the Mutt staff and others protested. Holiness said, "No, it is their custom." So he simply, what is to be done, I know. So that is all. That is how it was given. So these are all some of the examples of his accommodative, what do you call principles. I distinctly remember one more incident. I would like to mention it here. That there was a very great spiritual personality in Haridwar, Kankal. It's called a Kankal near Haridwar. That person was considered to be self-realized soul and very much appreciated by our Jeshta Mahasanidanam. Once an Atirudram was conducted in that ashram, and our Holiness, all the Shankaracharyas were invited, and our Jeshta Mahasanam also invited. But our Jeshta Mahasanam declined because he said that it is not like others that we could immediately fly and then participate in anything. We have our own systems. So anyway, after the Atirudram was over, that Swamiji prepared by personal hands a very beautiful sweet and packed it very nicely in a very purest manner which is possible. Then the sweet was to be submitted to our Jeshta Mahasinidanam and looked forward to his views on the sweet. That is, after tasting the sweet, he was looking forward to the feedback. Now, as we all know, our Sringeri Jagadgurus don't touch anything from outside, and this was also sent by a very, very respectable Swamiji. So this was submitted to Jeshta Mahasinidanam. And you will all be surprised the way the response was given by our Jeshta Mahasanam. That sweet was distributed to the personal attendants one by one, without knowing the other. He said, taste this and tell me how it is and what do you feel about it. So each one was given a piece of that and they gave the feedback. He said, how is it prepared? What do you see? What is the taste of it? What are the ingredients? All that. So from different persons, all the information was collected and a reply was sent by mail without mentioning that it was, how it was done. He wrote all the details that it was prepared from out of cow milk, pure ghee. These are all the ingredients, costly dry fruits, everything. And it tasted superb and something out of the ordinary and all that. And the reply came back that overwhelmed by the explanation given and the description given on how the sweet was prepared. So, personally, I would like to share that Holiness himself told, hey, this is how our Sachidananda Shiva Abhinava Narasimha Bharaswamy did once. When a lady devotee from Kolkata sent something similar to this. So that is what I adopted. So he had a precedent, not only precedents, but without saying that I cannot taste it and I cannot do it, he really pleased the other person without telling a lie that I tasted it and all that, without telling a lie or without exaggerating it. He gave exactly what the other person wanted. So that was something, the most unforgettable way of handling issues. So that was something I thought I would share with you. Now, certain times, we all know that when the Mahatmas do certain things, we don't know whether it was premeditated action or what is the significance behind it. We realize it or realize the significance only after something's happen. So I would like to quote two incidents only here. I don't know if I am taking too much time. Please pardon me. I would like to conclude shortly. This was the camp returning from our north in that is Kedarnath, no, Gangotri, Yamunotri. We were going towards Maharashtra. We were about to descend the very steep hills down to Ullasnagar, I think it is Ullasnagar. The mountain terrain was very, very sharp, peaks and roads were all very, very tough to negotiate. See, usually in the camp, the first convoy would be the Mat puja articles and other staff. They would first leave the camp. And in a gap of about 3 to 4 hours, those days, 3 to 4 hours, Holiness's convoy would leave the place so that when Holiness has reached, the puja and everything will be ready for the next camp. That particular camp, because of the steep, the peaks and other terrain, Holiness's convoy overtook the bus and all that because they were driving very slow. They couldn't climb the hills so, usual level of speed. So when we were driving, Jeshta Mahasanam said that, suddenly he said, look at the scene, it is so beautiful. And at one point he said, "Stop the car." So the car was stopped. Uh, Behind our present Mahasananam's car was also there. So we all stopped. So Jeshta Mahasanam got down from the car, walked to the other side of the road, which was a small, cliff where there was a platform like a rock. He was appreciating the scene. Then suddenly he took his, that chauk, we call that kerchief like a cloth. He spread, sat on that, and started meditating. So we were all standing behind. The Holiness was on meditation for a few minutes, maybe 20, 30 minutes. We don't remember correctly. Then after that, he came out. He said, "Okay, come, let's go." So we drove on and we reached the place, Ullasnagar. And the bus and other lorries, which were much behind us, didn't reach for a long time. Then after some time, suddenly two fellows, our MUT staff, came running. They said that, "Look, our bus broke down and we need some kind of a transport to bring all the people back and also the articles." So locally, we immediately organized for some other transport. They went and then picked them up and they came back. Then when I talked to the bus driver, he said, "What happened?" He said that the brake of the bus failed and somehow we were struggling. And I just got one corner where I slowly brought the bus to a halt. Then we got down. From there, we sent two people through some other means of transport. And then this is how it happened. From the description, he gave the spot very near to where our Jeshta Mahasanam sat for meditation. And from that point onwards, ahead of that, it was such a steep, descent that anything could have happened. We don't know. We all confirmed, or so to say that we all believed that it was just because Jeshta Mahasanam stopped that spot and sat for meditation that it saved the lives as well as the property of the mutt. That was something very remarkable. Similarly, Holiness was camping in Rajapalayam. Rajapalayam, one day in the evening, Holiness was to go out for a visit of a temple. Usually when Holiness comes out and then sits in the car, then we start, so everything is ready. Unusually that day, when after sitting in the car, Jeshta Mahasanam called his personal attendant. I told him something to go and pick up something and and come. So he went to Holiness's room and brought something. We didn't know what it was. Then we went to the temple and the temple function was over. And when Jeshta Mahasanam came out of the temple, one lady, she was crying. She fell at the feet of her Jeshta Mahasanam and said that, look, she lost her Thirumangalyam, Mangal Sutra. Then Jeshta Mahasanam told this attendant, hey, go and pick up that thing. So he went to the car and brought this. This was a Thirumangalyam. And others didn't know, but we were all surprised that how is it that Jeshta Mahasanam knew that this was to happen? We don't know. Even today, we have no answer. But the lady said that she had lost her Thirumangalyam that morning. So the neighbors had told her that, look, don't worry, Sringeri Swamiji has come. You go and pray and he will bless you. And she also came to know that Holiness was visiting that temple which was close to her place. So these two incidents were so remarkable that, we can go on, constructing stories, how it happened, how this, that, and all. We cannot still fathom what was the reason behind this. So that was something which I thought I would like to share. Now I would take a few more minutes of certain examples, if I am permitted. Can I go ahead, please? Now, you see, in Delhi, there was a devotee. In fact, he was vice president of our Delhi committee, Venkat Subban. He was a very senior government officer also, very learned in our scriptures. His grandson, he was at that time maybe about 7, 8 years old. Now that boy, he had some ill health, maybe a typhoid or something. For about 1.5 to 2 months, he couldn't go to school. And after he recovered, when he went to the school, that very day, his class teacher, he she was inquiring with every other child that one of the children, lost something, maybe pencil, pen, or whatever it is. So everybody, she was inquiring with everybody. Everybody said, "I don't know, I don't know," and all that. When it came to this boy, because he was, under typhoid or whatever, he couldn't even, properly understand what she was asking. So he didn't answer anything, and the teacher caned him. And out of the shock, the boy lost his speech. And when he came home, he was not speaking, and the parents were worried. The grandparents, everybody was worried in the family. So they didn't know what to do. So when they inquired from the school, they came to know the incidents. Anyway, that exercise went on, scolding the people, and then they went to the doctors and all that. They tried everything, nothing happened. And a few months away, very shortly, our Jeshta Mahasanam was to visit Delhi. So in the camp, as soon as our holinesses arrived, the very next morning, when during the Tirtha Prasadam, the gentleman Venkat Subban brought this grandson and prayed His Holiness. Whatever happened, he said, "This is what happened, and this is the situation." Jeshta Mahasanam simply called that boy, "Hey, what is your name?" He said, "Shivamani." And you can imagine what would have gone through the parents. And Jeshta Mahasanam started teaching him a slokam. He said, "Gajananam Bhutaganadam, repeat me." So repeat after me. The boy started in very clear words. He started repeating the slokam. Gajananam Bhutaganadi Sevdam Kapitta Jambu Phalasara Bhakshitam. That was all. And this gentleman Venkat Subban fell at the feet of His Holiness, and he didn't get up at all. So this was so simple. A similar thing happened while I was in Singeri. A lady from Madurai, she had children also. She suddenly lost her speech, some strange circumstances. Now, their best friend was our Mat Mudradikari. So he used to be visiting them, asking what has happened, how is she improving, and all that. So the situation was like that. So when he learned that nothing was improving, one day that lady was showing some book where our Jagadguru Sri Chandrasekhara Bharati's photo was there. So this girl's father said, "Look, whenever we want to take her for some treatment, she shows some picture, an old man," like that. Then when the picture was shown to him, this man was a very staunch devotee of Sringeri. He was shocked. "You are a fool. Don't you know who this is? This is our Jagadguru." So immediately he packed them, brought them to Sringeri very next day. That is Madurai to Bangalore, Bangalore to Sringeri. So he brought this lady also. And in the morning, when our Jeshta Mahasanam used to come out for darshan, he narrated the whole thing. And this is what it is. So Holiness simply gave her a fruit. I think it is apple. Is it? Okay, have darshan of Sharda Devi. Let her bless her. That is all he told. And these people went across, went to Sharda Devi temple, and went in their room. And when the lady consumed the fruit, she started singing bhajan. Then this gentleman, Mudradhikari, immediately rushed her to the other side. Then he was, panting for breath and all that. He said, "Balu, I want to see Holiness immediately." And I said, "What happened?" So he said, "Look, can't you see? She's singing." And I was also so excited. So I went up and told Jeshta Mahasanam, Shankarnarayanan has come. This is what it is. He didn't say anything. Okay, see him. Then after 1 hour, when he came down for his Madhyani Anushtanam, so Shankarnarayanan, fell prostrate, and then he said, "This is what it is." Holiness did not say anything. He simply smiled and then, went ahead with his routine. In the evening, he knew that something was going in my mind. So after a little conversation, he explained, "What do you think that Holiness had performed some miracle?" He said, I told, no, I just, it was very surprising. How did it all happen otherwise? He said, "Holiness did not perform any miracle." Then I said, "How did it happen?" So he was explaining, look, there are three very important factors in this. One, the intensity of the devotion and the extreme sufferings. At that point of time, they look for some relief somewhere. So it is the grace of the Almighty, grace of Devi, that she wants to bless them and acts through us like we are all instruments. So this is a simple explanation Holiness gave, but we are sure that something beyond that, and we can imagine anything. So these were something again very, very remarkable in this thing. And before conclusion, there were two more incidents connected with some temples. In Chennai, there is a temple in Adayar. I believe that temple, when it was constructed long ago, our Jyeshta Mahasana was supposed to come and perform the Kumbhabhishekam. And at that point of time, somebody gave a yantra with not good intentions, I would say, and to be plain, it was with some ulterior motive. So the temple, everything went off very well, but the puja was all conducted very well. But suddenly the temple started getting some problem, unknown problems they couldn't solve. So they approached our Jyeshta Mahasinidanam. Then our Jyeshta Mahasanam gave some remedies. They were performed. But then again, it was seen that things were not all right. Then our Jyeshta Mahasanam said that during my next visit, we will see. So after a few years, when our Holiness happened to visit Adayar, he went into the temple. Then he found that something was wrong. But mentioning it to only few people, he rectified that. And now I believe for many years now, the temple is doing very well. The puja is being conducted and people are very happy about it. And similar, very big incident happened with the Guruvayur temple. That something happened that the Guruvayur temple started facing problems like some electrocution. The very important elephant Keshavan, the prime, died. And a few more incidents which are not required now. Then they went for, like the Nambudhiris do, they went for a Deva Prashnam. So in the Deva Prashnam, it was mentioned that a very great holy person of universal renowned level, he was insulted, that he was disrespected. So you have to first rectify it. And the method was also prescribed that you should go, Devaswam board member should go personally invite him and seek apology at the that mandapam. I don't remember exactly. Right opposite the deity, there is a mandapam where he should be seated, all respects paid, and you should seek apologies. So the Devaswam board, that was a time when I was there. So they had visited Sringeri. They prayed our Holiness that they should, consider their request. They must visit Guruvayur, and they invited them with all honor. But our Holiness very gently said, "Look, it's a great pleasure. We will come. We'll all come for having darshan of Lord Krishna, and this apology business and all that is not required. So we will have a pleasant darshan, and then we'll be done with it." They said, "No. Otherwise, our prayashchitam will not be completed. So you have to accept." So when our Ubaya Sannidhanam, that is Jyeshta Mahasannidhanam and Mahasannidhanam went, they were seated in that mandapam. Sahasranama Pada Puja was done by the Devaswam president, and they honored him with the usual temple procedure. And they said that we will seek apology, and Holiness to say Kshamichu. So 3 times we will say that, and 3 times our Holiness should accept it. Our Holiness said, no, it is very embarrassing. We should not be done in front of Lord Krishna. They said, no, you have to do it. This is otherwise we will not be complete with the prayashchitam. So ultimately it was also done. So that was something very great, and I was very fortunate to be on that occasion. So I think we will now come somewhere close to conclusion. And one thing I would like to conclude by saying that there were two things which our Jeshta Mahasanam used to personally feel very happy about. That was one, whenever anybody mentions anything about Jagadguru Sri Chandrasekhara Bharati Swamigal, you can see his face reflecting with like a, with so much immense happiness. And another instance is whenever somebody tells anything about our Mahasanidhanam. In fact, he used to ask during the camps, how was holy, just our Mahasanidhanam used to give, everybody knows that the way the discourse is delivered by our Mahasanidhanam, crystal clear and graphic. So whenever we say this, he used to feel so happy listening to that. So these were the two instances where we have seen, otherwise from the spiritual level, feeling very happy to listen on that. Without taking much time, I would like to thank once again Tatva Loka, Sri Sharadaji and other administrators of Guru Bandhavas. It's a great honor. I feel immensely blessed that I could share and remember our Jeshta Mahasanidhanam and our Mahasanidhanam and Sri Sri Sanidhanam. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
I think on behalf of Tattvaloka, Guru Bandhava, it's a great blessing to listen to the very immensely, very intimate details of Jeshta Mahasanidhanam from someone who has devoted his major part of his life to him. On behalf of T.R. Ramchandran, who knows you very well, sir, I convey my warm regards. You have really brought the memory of the great Jeshta Mahasanidhanam in front of all of us. எல்லாத்தையும் விட ஜேஷ்ட மகாசனிதானம் நளினம் இஸ் ரொம்ப நளினம். Ramchandran used to mention, he asked him to take over Tattvaloka, and Ramchandran really toiled hard. முதல் issue, April 1987 issue முடிச்சு, he took the issue to Jeshta Mahasanidhanam and said, with some amount of a genuine pride, ரொம்ப கஷ்டப்பட்டு எல்லாம் முடிச்சுட்டேன், எல்லாம் பண்ணியாச்சு, ரொம்ப அழகா வந்திருக்கு, நீங்க பார்க்கணும். Jeshta Mahasanidhanam opened the book and பார்த்துட்டு ரொம்ப நல்லா இருக்கு, இதை ராமச்சந்திர சுவாமிஜியே உண்மைலாம் பண்ணதான் நினைச்சுக்கோ, நீ பண்ணதான் நினைச்சுக்காத. This is a great advice. He always used to drive the spiritual point every now and then. Shed your ego. நீ பண்ணல, அது அம்பாள் பண்ணி வச்சிருக்கான். And the example which came is that and the boy speaking and the lady was able to regain the voice. Our kurta fruits our Ambar Pani Vishad. And the great sense of Nalinam and the ego shedding as something remarkable. And he gave a practical example in life how to do that, including asking Swamiji's bank account because you need the money to live without any dependence on anybody. It's a practical way to do that things. And for our Acharya is great, is scrupulous, is insistent on Sandhyavandanam and Gayatri worship. That's amazing. He says nothing can basically lift anybody unless you fulfill your daily Sandhyavandanam. That's Pandani Poro. That will take you to highest levels of your existence. And I think today, modern generation, everybody should understand this. And the multifaceted Divan Mukta book, எல்லாரும் படிக்கணும். அது ஆச்சாரியாளுடைய அந்த காருண்யம், அவருடைய நளினம், அவருடைய கிரேஸ் எப்படி ஒரு பேஜிலே வந்திருக்குங்கிறத பற்றி எல்லாருக்கும் தெரியும். And I only close it by saying that we are blessed today on the great happy day, which is also coinciding with Acharya's birth nakshatram.
Yes, it's Swati.
Nakshatram eniki. Swati nakshatram and Acharya's birthday is a rare combination of coming and to get an intimate feeling of the great our experiences and episodes through Sri KMB. We're all grateful to you, sir, for these things.
Oh, my pleasure.
More and more opportunity you should get. And Mari Acharya, because we all know that Acharya is eternal presence. In thousands and thousands of people, when you go and stand Adhishtanam in front or even at home,
yes,
many of us have experienced that. you pour out your basic anguish or mental things and kind of Acharya picture not பண்ணுங்க நீங்க போறோம், you get the solution. பார்த்துருக்கோம்.
Absolutely.
Acharya is eternal living. எல்லாம் பார்க்குறோம் நம்ம. And more important, how he has brought the current Mahasannidhanam as a successor. It is absolutely remarkable. Just as he was brought in as his successor of the great Chandrasekhara Mahaswamigal, அவர் எப்படி அவர் இஸ் தபஸ் சக்கரவர்த்தி அவர் இந்த மகாசன்னார்த்த அந்த பீடத்தை உட்காந்து வச்சிருந்த. So we are all grateful to get the Guru Parampara as part of this great tradition and bhaktas of this tradition. அதை நீங்க in the lecture you brought vivid examples of his karunyam and his great his yogic power and he explained பண்ணீங்க. We are all grateful to you, sir. Once again, on behalf of all senior devotees, Tattva and at the holy feet of Sri Mahasannidhanam, Sri Sannidhanam, you all convey Visashtanga Namaskaram. Namaskaram.
I'm honored. One, if I may say, if I'm permitted, one word. Our Jeshta Mahasannidhanam had predicted those days. He used to often, not once, many times. You just wait during there is no parallel to our Mahasannidhanam, present Mahasanam in scholarliness or his erudition or spiritual greatness. You will see in his times the mutt will attain the glory at a universal peak, and we are all blessed to see that with our eyes. What greatness our Mahasanam has brought our mutt to such a level that nobody can imagine.
Absolutely. Namaskaram, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.